Hey, it's Saul Overman with Saul Overman Survival. Today we're going to discuss the K-bar fighting knife. K-bar is a generic term for this style of knife, as well as a brand name of a particular company. Um, the other designations that you'll hear for this are knife, comma, fighting utility. That was the official designation of this. These were brought out midway through World War II to fill a perceived need of a lack of an effective combat utility knife. One of the reasons why we're doing this video, and one of the reasons why these knives have remained so popular since then and are still carried by many members of the military, is that when you get right down to evaluating a blade, if someone was to ask you if you could have only one knife, what would it be? This would be the one that you would want to have. This would be your response to that. It is an all-around good utility knife. It has all the attributes that one would want in a good utility and possibly self-defense knife. Now, as we mentioned, K-bar is the name of the style of knife as well as a brand name. K-bar was a brand name that was used by Union Cutlery, and they marked their blades K-bar. However, these were made by other manufacturers that did not mark them K-bar, obviously, because they did not own that trademark. And since the World War II, Union Cutlery has actually changed its name to K-bar. So the brand name is now also the company name, and that company is owned by the conglomerate Cutco. But like I said, these are made by numerous manufacturers. They were made by numerous manufacturers during World War II. There was actually 4 manufacturers, and then there's some more today that are making them. What we have here is this is a K-bar, and it's so marked on the blade. You can see it, get it up there. Made in Orleans, New York. This is not a K-bar, this is an Ontario. And this is a case. This is the Case XX USMC knife. This knife actually is in a subtle way outside this category. This knife is a remake of a prototype that Case submitted to the War Department during World War II, and however, they did not get any contracts from that submission. I'm not sure why, substantially and in every way that, other than some very fine details, this knife is really equivalent to the K-bar and to the other manufacturers that made the combat utility knife in World War II. Why it was not accepted, I don't know. Probably because the government already had enough other manufacturers that were meeting their needs, is why they didn't accept it. There's some slight differences that we'll cover in a second, but they're really very minor and insignificant. So we do have some differences between these knives that are notable. The primary difference between these, the only one that I think really sways opinion one way or another over which one is better to own or use, is that the K-bar has a somewhat different grip shape. They're all leather stacked washers, compressed. That's how they're all made. The K-bar has a more oval or D-shaped grip, which makes it a little more comfortable in the hand and a little bit easier to orient the blade in the dark, tactfully instead of visually. As you can see, I'll hold up the Ontario. And by the way, the Ontario and the Case are made in the same factory. Ontario actually manufactured these Case Marine Corps knives for Case. They're made in the same factory, and they are very similar, as you'll be able to see. They have some differences, but you can see this cross section of this handle is much more round, and as well on the Case. That's a minor concern. I mean, it is nice to have that D-shaped handle on the K-bar, but the rounded ones are fine. I mean, there's nothing really wrong with that. Some of the qualities that they all share As we mentioned, they all have the leather stacked handles. They all have a pinned on, see the pin in that one, pinned on pommel. It's a large flat pommel that can be used for pounding tent stakes in or what have you. They all have a very similar guard. Not too large of a guard. I have seen these. One of the modifications you'll see to these is that these guards are shortened or ground down. Some people, in their theory of what a fighting knife should be, they should have either no guard or a very short one, which there is some validity to that. It does help positioning the blade in the hand not to have that guard get in the way of the fingers. It is a good safety feature, however. The guard on these is not obtrusive. It's a little smaller than some of the other Western knives or Bowie style knives you'll see. The guard on the K-bar is a little longer on the back edge of the blade side and a little bit curved compared to the other ones. Very minor, you know, it's within a couple or a few millimeters of difference. All of the U.S. made combat utility knives, K-bar type knives, are made of 1095 carbon, high carbon steel, moderate carbon steel, I should say. It's not really a high carbon, which is an excellent choice for this. Very good edge retention, very good stiffness, very good resistance to taking a set in a bend, while still being flexible enough to be used for prying or what have you. The downside to that steel choice is it is susceptible to rust. And prevent rust, the different manufacturers use different finishes. The K-bar has, the current production K-bar has a, it's probably a powder coat black paint. Not my first choice, actually. That's the finish I like the least, is on the K-bars. The Ontario has a, looks like bluing. However, on Ontario, see if we can get close enough to it, you can see the final fit, final polish of the blade is not quite up to the K-bar or the case. It's a little bit rough, but like I said, again, not a real important difference. And it appears to be, it's either a black phosphate or it looks like a deep, typical gun bluing is what it really looks like that finish is to me. On the case, this is a gray phosphate or parkerized type finish. Very wear resistant, very good finish. Although it will wear off, just like the paint will. It will chip and wear off. You can see some wear that's typical on these painted K-bars, some wear through the finish. But I mean, that's okay. It's not really a huge critical issue. It's just a preference. The only other difference I can really see in these and the blade that's significant, the fullers are slightly different. You can see the case fuller cut is very large. And then the Ontario is the smallest one. And then the K-bar has kind of a more moderate in the middle, sort of a relief cut there. I don't really see that that matters for any reason. Matter of fact, if that cut was not there, that lightning cut, I don't think the blade would significantly handle differently. Let's see. Let's move on to the grips. The K-bar type knives and the original, as they were issued in World War II and then subsequently, one of the main complaints was that the grips, the washers, were only slightly treated with some oils to prevent breakdown from moisture, mold growth, saltwater exposure, etc. They have some sort of a little wax coating on it or a little varnish. You can see it a little bit better on the case. It's a little newer than the other two. And this is found to be insufficient for actually protecting these leather in extreme or high moisture environments. Matter of fact, this K-bar, when I got it, was actually just completely green with mold that had grown on it. And luckily, I've picked this knife up before the mold had done any serious significant damage to the leather itself, and it has stayed intact, and its integrity is still good. However, over years of exposure like that, or a short period of time of saltwater exposure, this leather will start to break down. The field expedient fix for this, you'll see World War II K-bars and later K-bars that were spray painted black. by the troops that owned them. And this was a very effective field expedient for preventing the breakdown of the leather. The leather's porous, the paint would soak in quite deeply and provide a significant degree of protection, as well as making it darker and less visible. You can see the K-bars or the case is quite shiny as it came. The Ontario comes painted. I don't know if this is dipped or sprayed, I'm not sure, but they actually come this way. And they are much more resistant to breakdown from high moisture or saltwater exposure. This one I've treated, after I cleaned the mold off of it, I treated it with mink oil, which is an effective treatment to use some sort of an oil that's a water repellent. However, that treatment would have to be reapplied pretty frequently in order to stay effective. And as you can see on the case, they hit the high spots pretty well with some sort of protectant, but the low spots in the centers, they didn't really get a lot of that in there. So those areas would be quite vulnerable to breakdown from high moisture, mold, salt water, etc. And I have seen, this is not a theoretical thing, I have seen a lot of these knives where the handles have been completely rotted off, or so near to be rotted off that they're really no longer usable and would have to be replaced with some sort of replacement, either solid scales or redoing the leather, which I don't know anybody that does that. The sheaths that they come with, I don't have a sheath for the K-bar, but the other two sheaths I will show you if I can find them. The sheath for the K-bar is very similar. This is the one for the case. It's very similar. It says USMC on it, if that's what you prefer. It's brown leather that probably is not as resistant to moisture problems as it should be. Rather, it's a high quality leather, but not very well sealed at all. Definitely recommend waxing that with mink oil or something, which will darken it significantly and take away a lot of its natural beauty, but it will help it and help those threads to last longer. It will help the that leather from molding. This is the one that goes to the Ontario. You can see it has a deep black leather stain on it. That probably is more useful for keeping it protected than just leaving a natural finish on it. But you can see they're substantially the same. The knives will go in, either one of these knives will fit in either one of these sheaths. So, I mean, that gives you an idea how similar they are. All of them are a good bargain now. The K-bar, the real K-bar, is the most expensive of the three of these. All three of these are still available from knife wholesalers. The K-bar brings about a $20 premium. I'm not really sure why. It doesn't seem $20 better to me than the other two. Other than that, only the preference that the grip is a little bit more comfortably shaped. Other than that, I don't see why they charge more. And this paint and finish obviously would be cheaper for the K-bar company to do than these other two. I don't really see a quality edge in having the K-bar. It says K-bar on it. Some people like that. My favorite of the three of these is actually the Ontario. I just the blacked out handle and not having to worry about it as much in storage or in use, getting wet, soaking up water, and molding. This is the one that I would have to say is my favorite. The case is quite nice too. Nothing wrong with it at all. Like I said, all three of these knives are generally equivalent in every way. Now, I will give you a word of caution. These are being brought in also by the Chinese, from Chinese workshops. All of them that I have examined coming in from China, and I'm not a Chinaphobe, and if the Chinese make a product that I think is good, I certainly am always been willing to say so. The Chinese copies that have come in of these utility knives have been very poor, and the sheaths have been very poor. The blade material has been stainless steel, cheap stainless steel. Handle fixtures been very poor, and finish has been poor. The sheaths are just terrible. So for what they charge for these, they're a great value. Don't cheapen out by getting one of the China copies. Get one of the originals, and get 2 of them. You won't be sorry. Like I said, if somebody was to say you can only have 1 knife, what do you want it to be? This is the one I'd choose. Even over expensive customs or anything I could design myself, I would just pick up one of these. It's proven over, most of a century. Proven design, effective for really any use. I mean, you can use this for cutting up your dinner as much as, construction, digging, pretty much anything without worry that you're going to destroy your blade. They're very easy to sharpen. I tend to not sharpen on mine. I tend to not sharpen the back edge. I'll leave that a little dull for safety reasons. There's not really a reason to sharpen that. This one came pretty sharp from the factory on the case. You can see on the on my Ontario, I don't sharpen that. Well, this video's run a little long. I'm gonna let y'all go, and I hope you enjoy it. I will appreciate your comments. Y'all have a great day. It's Saul Overman saying goodbye.